We know that the American schools have been entangled in a series of culture war controversies, from the Don't Say Gay bill to groomers to book bannings. But it's getting a little bit weirder, and it feels like our country is going backwards, because a Missouri school district just created one of the most bizarre policy regressions, maybe in history, by allowing school administrators to paddle its students. The district in question is the Casparian School District. Paddling was allowed there until 2001, and legislation passed in June, and it's allowed again. The superintendent, Marilyn Johnson, said, "The complaints that we have heard from some of our parents is that they don't want their students suspended, they want another option. And so this was just another option that we could use before we got to that point of suspension." According to Johnson, parents have asked him, "Why can't you paddle my student?" To which he responded that the school policy does not support such a measure. There had been conversations with parents, and there had been requests from parents for us to look into it, he said. So we know a little bit so far about how the paddling policy will play out in schools. Parents opt in, which they can do at any point in the school year. They're also allowed to opt out if they change their minds. The superintendent said paddling will only be done by school administrators and with another certified school employee in the room. And it's unclear what would happen if a student resisted this punishment. And we've got more from that superintendent. Corporal punishment will be used only when other means of discipline have failed, and only in reasonable form when the principal approves it. Striking a student on the head or face is not permitted according to the policy. The only punishment allowed is swatting the buttocks with a paddle, Johnson said. 1 or 2 swings will be inflicted onto younger students, and up to 3 swings for older students. Unsurprisingly, not every parent is thrilled about this policy. Miranda Waltrip, who's a mother of 3, said, "I feel like if they had a different outlet, like counseling services at school, instead of corporal punishment, that would be the more appropriate answer. At the end of the day, they're having to hold the child down and spank them or use whatever means they can to make the child submissive when that is not the issue. It is the fact that they need to be heard because children act out for varied reasons." And there's some evidence that supports this mother's argument. A 2016 Journal of Family Psychology study found that spanking is ineffective at increasing children's short-term compliance and increases the risk of regression and antisocial behavior. So before we get to that video, I want to open it up for your initial thoughts.
Yeah, I've got 2 issues with this. One is child abuse, the other is perverts. And I tend to think that, look, I don't know. I'm sure there's some parents in that area who really do want to go old school, and they think the same ridiculous thing that people always think, which is, well, hey man, I got spanked and it turned out okay for me, which I always think, did it? And child abuse, not a great idea. So I'm gonna come back to that in a little bit. But the other part of it is, there's some Republicans who are perverts. And so now they wanna, after all the talk of like, oh, the teachers are groomers. Oh, don't say anything about gay people. Oh my God, the trans people, they're going in the wrong bathrooms, wrong sports. They're like, oh, I wanna take your young daughter and paddle her on the buttocks. No, that's a hard pass.
As far as I'm concerned, this whole approach to corporal punishment is not only a step backwards, but it's incredibly ill-advised. The fact is that they're teaching children how to hit, and the thought that that is an acceptable way to handle a situation when someone doesn't act the way you want them to. Also, the reality is that racism in schools is so incredibly rampant. We already know that Black students are subject to discipline and harsher discipline at disproportionate rates, particularly when compared to white children. And the APA put out a study finding how that impacts Black children's perceptions of education. And it makes you, of course, not want to attend school, as you would imagine. But again, we have to remember that these teachers are already unleashing extraordinary amounts of punishment on Black children. The Department of Education, their research finds that 15% of K through 12 public school kids, so grade school kids, 15% are Black, yet more than 30% of the students who are suspended, expelled, or arrested in grade school are Black. Even Black preschoolers, 18% of students enrolled, but they're 43% of those who are suspended from school. Black children are targeted. So if they allow this form of corporal punishment back into schools and sanction it, it's Black children who are going to be beaten and harmed at exponential rates. And it's just going to be even more of a problem. And it's really, really disgusting that they would even think that this is acceptable.
Yeah, we can only imagine how this would go in a state like Missouri. It's disgusting. And I don't want people to take this as, well, this is how I punish my kids. This is how I deal with my kids. I think that's one thing. This is a school district. This is not someone in your family doing this to your children who's in charge of punishment. We're gonna watch a pretty gross clip from Fox the 5 that ran last night. Keep in mind, these are the same people that were warning us all that transgender people were groomers and we were grooming children in school by teaching basic sex education and having pride flags during Pride Month. Same people. Let's watch.
If I had children, I would want to take care of the paddling myself.
Can you paddle female students?
Yeah, there's no distinction.
And on the butt, right? Not in the hand.
On the butt. It's on the butt.
And how many smacks do you get?
I think
to
three. Up to three.
And you cannot cause physical harm.
Well, what's the line?
Well, physical harm is physical injury.
Tears don't count.
No, where you leave a mark.
Where you leave a mark?
Yeah.
How do you know?
The parents will tell you when the kid gets home.
Just really creepy that the immediate question Waters asked was, so female students? Just disgusting. And this policy is still legal all across America. Corporal punishment is legal in public schools across 19 states, now including Missouri. In almost all states except for New Jersey and Iowa, it's also allowed in private schools. Really disgusting. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of them. First of all, Adrian makes such a great point. And as a kid who was a little bit bigger, right? I would get more stuff, right? They would think like you could handle it. And then Black kids, or especially Black boys, are considered bigger than they actually are. I was actually big, right? And if you're Black, you don't even have to be big. They just assume you are, right? And so are they gonna get hit more? Of course. By the way, boys are gonna get hit more. And Jesse Waters' question did sound like, not like he was concerned, let's put it that way. I didn't call him Jesse Dirty Waters for nothing. And so in terms of child abuse, guys, what are we doing? What is this really, we're gonna go back to this? This is crazy. I mean, in some states you get arrested for this. And by the way, this isn't even your own kids. You're letting strangers hit your kids? You don't even know what their motivation is? You're nuts, man, no way. And look, I'm a parent, I got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. Do they always listen? Hell no, right? So, and is it hard? The job of parenting, teaching, etc. Yes, of course it's hard, right? But you're supposed to teach lessons. What lesson do you teach when you hit them? That violence is the answer. I mean, whether you say that or not, that message resonates loud and clear with them, right? So if they leave their plates behind, let's say, just pick a random thing that kids do, right? What I say to them instead is, like, do you want to be mean to other people? Because when you say, I'm gonna leave my plates behind and I'm not gonna put them back in the sink, you're saying, I'm gonna make you do that. And if you want to be a person who doesn't respect other people and be mean, okay, that's an interesting choice, but understand that's the choice you're making. Well, okay, now you put your kids in an interesting situation. Like, hey, in a lot of ways that's harsher, right? But at least you're teaching them a lesson. At least you're telling them, hey, your actions have consequences, instead of me no like that, me smack you. What are you gonna learn from that?
Exactly. There's nothing to be taught other than how to hit or to weaponize or to use violence. And as far as I'm concerned, if someone were to hit my child has free reign to go ahead and respond. Self-defense 101. I don't care if it's a parent, a teacher, or somebody laying their hands on my child. If you need to defend yourself, do what you need to do. So these teachers may end up finding out the hard way, which is why they should not be doing this.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Just thinking about the mindset of a child who's learning about the world, hitting them isn't going to teach them anything. I remember being a kid, and when we would act out, my mom would have conversations with us. And we also didn't grow up religious. So we didn't really have that kind of fear of, if you're a bad person, your eternal damnation and you're going to hell. Instead, we learned lessons like, oh, how would you feel if someone did that to you? And you learn compassion. Instead, you're not solely acting in your self-interest of avoiding getting paddled. And I think we should also reflect on the fact that children are not paying attention to what's going on in schools for a reason. Maybe we should adjust the methodology in which we're teaching to keep kids engaged. Because if they're acting out to the point of needing punishment, needing suspension, and needing to be paddled, they're definitely not learning anything at all. And so instead, they're making the problem the children when maybe they should reflect on their curriculum and how they're teaching, because public schools are awful in the United States.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.